So good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're still awake after lunch and another speaker and another speaker. I'm John Hage. I'm the president and founder and CEO of Charter Schools USA. We kind of go by CSUSA more and more, and I'll explain why in a little bit as we broaden beyond the charter school world and what we do. So I have a team with me here today, and afterwards they'll be available for any questions. And just raise your hand. There we go. They're my fan club. So if I knew at least there'd be 3 people here to watch me speak. So there you go. And then Stacy in the back. Okay. With that, let me just give you a little overview of our organization and where we've been and where we're going. So charter schools have been around the country 25 years as a movement. There's now 6,000 of them in the country, representing about 5% of the marketplace of schools, of kids in K-12 that go to public education in this country. But it's grown fast. But there are some scaled operators in the country. We have another friend here from National Heritage. Brian runs one of those. And there's some quality operators out there like KIP and others, and we're one of those. And Charter School USA was something that came out of really an early idea in the charter world, which is I got involved in the policy of writing the charter law in Florida for then Jeb Bush before he was governor, and involved in starting the first charter school. Fell in love with the concept, and before we knew it, you're opening schools for kids, and you just found yourself kind of falling in love with this. And you never kind of came out of college thinking you'd do this, but you end up doing something that is just amazing. And so 20 years later, we're here, and we represent 75,000 students that go to our schools across 8 states and 85 schools. And we have about 25,000 students on waiting lists to get inside of a CSUSA operated school. And those schools are very diverse. They represent, we have about 8,500 educators, for example, that support those schools. And so we've started very small with 1 school and 200 kids, and today represent this large network. But we still are very agile, flexible, and innovative, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, and hopefully some partnerships that could come out of this discussion. We also have a very high parent satisfaction rate. We're very happy with that, since parents have to choose to go to one of our schools, and if they choose not to come back, then we don't choose to. We won't be around for long. So we obviously want to keep our parents happy, but we also have a high graduation rate. We do have a large number of high schools, not just K-8, so we have the whole gamut, and we actually are more and more involved in the preschool area as well. So we also have a very high advancement to college or technical school of 96 percentile, and that represents a student population that's quite diverse. About 70% of our students are, in fact, minority and or free and reduced lunch, and represent a cross-section. We do serve students in both suburban and urban areas, as well as rural areas. We're based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, so it gives you a sense that Florida was sort of our first growth. And since then, we've grown throughout the East Coast, all the way from Chicago to Indiana to North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Louisiana, and our footprint to continue to grow across the U.S. as we speak, in fact. This year, we'll open up 5 new schools. And those represent, between the schools and the new students, as well as existing students, will increase our student population by approximately 8,000 to 9,000 new students that we'll serve this year. So year over year, we typically grow anywhere between 12 to 15 to 20% as we continue to have a large demand for our product and services, and supporting communities and parents and doing exciting things. One thing that's really unique about CSUSA is that we actually have 22 different kinds of customers. All of our customers have one thing in common, and that is that they wanted high-performing schools in their community. Some of those are parents. Some of those customers are actually municipalities. We actually opened and founded and started the first municipal charter school in America, and that since has grown into an idea that other states have picked up. And that basically was, if they were a small town, and in this case it was a city outside of Fort Lauderdale that basically needed a high school. And in that case, everybody kind of lived in their town until K-8, and then they didn't really want their kids to be bused somewhere else for high school, and the school district wasn't the same decider of where your schools was as the city. So the city really had no input on whether they could get a high school until the charter law came along. And so the charter law was their way of implementing a way to get a high school, and they chose us to be their operator, and we've managed that for 18 years now. And that middle high school in Coral Springs is actually one of the top 50 performing high schools in the United States recently as awarded. And we're really proud of the kind of customers we have. We actually have even school boards as our customer, which is kind of interesting, right? So typically charter schools sort of go to school districts or to state entities to get authorized, but we also have relationships with school boards where they recognized that a charter was a part of something that they couldn't do on their own in solving that problem. So in this case, it was 2 school districts that actually bordered each other, and neither one could justify building a new school between the districts, so they decided to build a charter school and have a private entity come in and help finance and design and build and operate that for them. And I actually have 3 board members from one district and 2 from another school district, and we report to that school board district. So in every case, it's a non-for-profit in some form or fashion that holds that charter and then hires us, and then we manage every aspect of that. We do the curriculum, we bring in the technology, but we do that with a lot of partners. We probably have well over 100 partners today that we work with, many of them here at this summit. We've been excited to build out many partnerships because of the GSV Summit over the years, learning and developing new partnerships there. And that's what we really have become, is we're really a lot more than an education company. We're a lot more than just 75,000 kids and 85 school buildings and all that goes with that sort of traditional model. We're actually quite much more like an innovation company. In fact, what we have going on in our school represents many of the innovations that many of you already do or that are thinking about. In other words, we've become a platform for innovation that oftentimes is difficult for someone to do out in a traditional bureaucratic setting. They might go to a school district and try to beta test something, but the school district would look at them and say, you know what, we can't really be involved in that politically or for whatever reason financially or legally. We look at those opportunities and say, if that can benefit our students, then we'll be the early beta test. We'll test that out. We'll be a place where the innovation can take place, and then use that as a catapult to spread those ideas across school districts and other charter operators. And we really like that model. So this is just a few examples of what that looks like. We have, for example, with our students, these are just a few of the kind of partnerships that we've developed. Think Through Math, Reading Plus, Lexia really helping us with the way that they've actually aggregated their data in innovative ways for us and given us a back-end look at our own students. And then we utilize that against all the other platforms and products that we use to actually come together with a better analysis for our teachers, real time, and help them educate those kids in ways that they wouldn't be able to do because of that partnership. Or also for our teachers, for example, Chalk.com, Performex, Edmodo, Safari, just a few of the kind of organizations that we work with in collaborative ways, not just buying them as a product to use as a service within our schools, but actually work with them to design something differently and uniquely for our students and our teachers. In this case, Chalk.com, for example. Chalk represents a growing company, innovative company, where we're working with them to actually design grade books and ideas behind how the student learning is assessments are done, and they have actually designed programs for us, customized, and as doing that, it's actually worked for customers around the country. So again, being a lab for them and them being a lab for us has really put us at the forefront of some of the reforms that we are seeing and excited about. And then lastly, our schools. Things like NWEA, which is actually a large assessment, the Northwestern Assessment Centers. We're working with them. We actually have someone sitting on their board with us and bringing them into our house and vice versa to work together on how does assessment look in the future. How do we do that in a world where every state kind of has its own rule book now that we've kind of moved away from the Common Core world. Performance Matters, Smartboard, the same thing. Each of these represent true partnerships that actually make us better and make them better, and that's what we're hoping to come out of this summit again with, is some new partnerships. So here's a little video, I think, and that'll kind of give you a little background of what those innovations actually look like in the classroom.
My name is Stacy Schmidt, and I'm the principal of Renaissance Charter School at Tradition. We have opened the school with the idea that we don't know what technology is going to be like in the future, but we want our students to be technology ready. We currently have a 3D printer in our technology lab for middle school. We also do programming of Ozobots, where students get to program little robots right on their desks. We've brought in small labs to help us get kids excited about science. So we've turned a classroom into a small lab classroom where the entire floor is a computer screen, and there's wands and all sorts of things that get students to be kinesthetic learners while they're learning abstract concepts in science.
Fifth grade class, do you love Science Lab?
Yeah!
Technology has motivated my son to do above his grade level. He's now achieving above grade level, and it is the technological programs that are in the classroom that have helped him to do that.
This group of football players at Coral Springs Charter School aren't only exercising their bodies, they're also exercising their brains, thanks to a new program called Minds in Motion, created by their coach, Mike Higgins.
I don't believe everybody learns the same way.
So the coach tackled the issue of learning by coming up with a software program that allows certain students to learn while they work out on a treadmill or exercise bike.
You have kinesthetic learners that constantly bouncing their knees up and down. You have kids with attention deficit disorder, attention hyperactive disorder. Those kids would definitely benefit from this program.
Marcia Plummer says her son, Alexander, has had great success with this unique approach to learning.
He's moving while he's actually learning something, not realizing that he's learning something. He's the type of person who needs, something else to keep him in twos and focus on his work. So it worked very well for him.
Attitude is altitude is all about the way we choose to live our life, the choices that we make.
No matter what happens to me, how I respond to it is what's going to determine how far in life I go.
You can tell the attitude in the class is completely different. The students want to help one another. They're opening up to each other. They're interacting with students that they never interacted with before. They want to help. They want to be part of a community, something bigger than just the class.
It just, all in all, makes you feel like a better person for learning about it, and it just makes you feel good.
So that last one you heard about, Attitude is Altitude, is actually a joint venture program where we're actually designing curriculum with Nick Wojcik, who's one of the leading motivational speakers in the world, has no arms and no legs, who was born that way, spoke to over 3 billion people around the world, and we actually are designing that in a K-12 setting so that that can infiltrate. We know that there's a large number of students that are dealing with bullying, that are dealing with self-esteem issues, emotional issues, and we're addressing that directly, and as we design that, we're actually going to be doing that and designing that into a program, into an app, and that'll be something that'll be used with schools all over the world. So really excited about that because, again, we're that innovation platform. And if you think back when charter schools were founded, and if you were around at those times, that was part of the whole point of charter schools. If we weren't doing something better and different, what was the point, right? And so what I'm excited about in this organization today is 20 years in, we're as innovative as we've ever been. We're challenging the status quo. We're doing things that people want to do but can't do because of whatever reason. We're doing that kind of work, but we're sharing that work. We're not just keeping that work. We believe that that is stuff that all educators, that all teachers should know about, and we're excited about sharing that. So as I finish up here, just to tell you a little bit about that infrastructure, we're doing really great things in our pre-K through 12, our large and small campuses, and with all of our demography, including how we prove out our model. And that really has 5 key elements to it. And this is really what I would leave you with before I go into a Q&A session with you. And that is, we're going to continue to seek innovations in these 5 areas right now. First and foremost, in our Student Digital Life Dashboard. And that isn't just for the student and how the student is viewed. It's how the whole child is viewed by the parent, by the teacher, and by themselves, and simplifying that teacher experience. And so there's a lot of tools already around that. We know teachers have too much red tape on their table every day. We know that a teacher that has more time to focus on the student in that classroom is going to be more successful. So if you have tools and ideas in that, we would like to be talking to you and think about things that we could do with you in our classroom. Sustainable school models, that means more than just building a school that's around 50 years from now. It means building new designs, something completely different. So we're actually rethinking physical plants, actually going into those plants and saying from ground up, how can we design something that is a true smart school? How can we do something where, for example, one-way glass is involved, and you can walk into a pod and you can touch the glass, listen to what's going on in that classroom while not disturbing that classroom, and having studies that are done with researchers in colleges and universities, doing things that are just outside the norm. Talent acquisition. At the end of the day, it's all people, people, people. One of the things I love about this conference is we're focused on real things like people, because if those teachers don't accept those technologies, embrace them, implement them in the classroom, then you're not going to get them to actually use it in a way that those students are going to benefit from. So we are definitely at the forefront. We're hiring over 1,100 new employees a year with our growth, and we're always focused on best strategies, using data, using analytics to go in and find great talent, keep that talent, train that talent, and continually do that PD in a way that doesn't take away from their classroom instruction time. And then data and analytics is a definite area where we are doing that at a bigger level than ever. So we're big enough now where we need to have our own repository, because we have 20 plus systems and they have to all talk to each other. So we're now doing that in a collaborative way, both with external partners and internally. And that's an exciting place to be, because few school districts have ever done that, much less large-scale operators. And then last, our business development. We're much more than just our name today. We do turnaround schools, for example. We work for state boards of education to go into some of their lowest performing public schools, go in and change those cultures, turn them around, turn them into high performing schools, and then hand them back to school systems. And then make sure we have sustainable systems in place to make them continuously high performing. So we're excited about the kind of new business development that we're doing, and the way that we see ourselves in the future, well beyond the original charter school world, and much more about choice, and doing that in a way that's in the whole child's interest. So at this time, I'm going to end with just a couple key critical points and then open it up for Q&A. These are kind of the key things that was, and I'll steal this a little bit from Ted Shriver earlier from Castle, and I'm going to add one to it, and that are the big C's. Character, curriculum, collaboration, communication, creativity, critical thinking, critical competencies, and I would also, cultural competencies, and I would add content. And those are the 8 things that I think you could summarize that we're focused on every day to drive results for kids. So with that, I know you guys might have a few questions. I have 7 minutes left. They have a microphone over here. And just say your name and who you're with, and shoot, anything you want to ask, I'll try to answer. Anybody have a question? Okay, if not, Brian?
Thanks, Brian Britton with National Heritage Academies. John, when you are testing and trying out all these innovative things, do you ever get to a point where you have identified something that works really well, and then do you then mandate that across all your states, or is it something that you allow each and individual region to decide?
Yeah, so we have it 2 ways. So data or ideas come up and ideas come down. We really try to, we're moving towards a cultural mindset. It's a shift, right? So that the teacher is the primary driver of the ideas. So we found, for example, Class Dojo, that really came from our teachers, and we sort of then institutionalized that. A lot of ideas really are coming from them, but as it does become something that we see drives analytics or drives results academically or drives sustainable development or whatnot, one of the key goals that I outlined, then we will sometimes make those non-negotiables. And so what we really set out really clearly for every school are those clear non-negotiables that make us who we are, those unique factors that any Charter School USA school you go into, you're going to see the same thing in every school. But then we allowed a lot of customization. There's plenty of things in each one that's different. And the customization takes place as it's earned by those leaders who have provided themselves with the kind of critical results that are first in place. So that might be a grade in that school. It might be operational excellence. It might be financial excellence. And then they start to earn more autonomy so they can then become innovation leaders beyond their own school and become sort of advocates for the whole network and even beyond our network. One of them are here today. You saw her in the video. That's Stacy, Dr. Smith back here in the back. And Stacy has been one of those leaders for us. And in her school, she stays as a school leader, but she's also one of our innovation leaders on our national network for us. Yes, sir. You can. It's not that big a room. Go ahead.
You're K through 12, correct?
Yes, sir.
So my question is, I'm focused on literacy and not teaching kids to read, but getting kids at the end point of reading where they're college-ready readers. Do you see a drop-off in terms of your metrics as kids go on? And there's, on a national level, that's what happens, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more success with younger kids, and then as they go to middle school, ninth grade seems to be the inflection point. What are you guys seeing in terms of high school and sustaining it, and what are some things, if you're seeing successes, what are some things that are driving that?
Yeah, we're challenged with the same thing. Everybody's challenged there. And maybe afterwards we'll go into some detail with you, and I have my team here, but it's basically some of the programs we're using, some of the ones I just mentioned, in fact, are showing some great results for us. But it wasn't just because we used a program to help with, reading or whatnot. It's because of the way we've integrated with the teachers and the data and the information for constant feedback, and then making it constantly improving for the student experience. So I think, again, if you have that innovation mindset, if you hire for that, if you train for that, if you build for that, if you incent for that, you start to get that different mindset. And people, they don't realize that teachers are inherently very creative. They are innovators by most teachers. I mean, I can't make nothing's 100%, but they do want more freedom to do those things, but they want to do it with accountability and results. So that's one of the things I'm excited about, and seeing some of our reading scores really do much better year over year. Any others? Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Governor. Lieutenant Governor here, by the way.
What are the top
North Carolina.
roadblocks that you run into in every state or every district, based on top 2 or 3?
So the big roadblocks, Governor, are, and by the way, if you don't know, Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest is one of the leading political advocates in this country. He's the #2 guy at North Carolina, and someday going to be a great governor, and he's going to be speaking tomorrow. Go to his session, but he's a great advocate for school choice and reform. I would say the 3 things are equity, and when I mean equity, I mean parity on every level. So financial equity is a major, major issue. Our average school receives about 30% less per student in funding, even though it's a public school, and even though we have to, go to the same, we have to take the same state tests. I have to have certified teachers, et cetera. So parity and funding, regulatory reloading. There's definitely a lot of that happening in states, especially states that have sort of had a kickback politically. We're definitely seeing more regulation come into the marketplace, stifling some of the innovation that actually made us better and different. And I think thirdly, sort of this misnomer that somehow the tax designation of the enterprise, we happen to be a tax-paying organization. I actually think that's a good thing. We pay taxes for the revenues we get, and we're performance-oriented. But I think people should look at outcomes, not inputs, and get judge on results. So thank you, Governor, for that question. In the back, yes, sir. Isn't she awesome? She's like, it's like amazing.
Gabe Nakashima with the Charter Substitute Teacher Network.
Yes.
I'm going to dive into vertical here, but just given your optics and perspective here, what's best practices that you guys have found across your campuses for ensuring high quality and high fill rates, so the school day continues, learning continues when your staff is out?
So for the staffing side, you mean, or for? I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, have you found a solution for substitute teachers?
Okay, for sub teachers. Yeah, that's an area that, yes, the answer is no. I'm going to be honest. We're currently in the middle of that right now. We actually have some very innovative things going on, and I think we'd love to talk to you afterwards if you have some creative stuff. Let's just be honest. Less and less people are going into education. I was with 2 university presidents in the last 3 weeks. Both of them said their College of Eds are down by 60% and 40% respectively in numbers. People aren't going into teaching. Until the next recession, they probably won't for a while, and then there'll be a backflow. But the reality is that there's going to be a large substitute teaching population and for a while, and we need to be very agile in that. We do have our internal system, but we're looking for additional innovations around that. So I was told 25 minutes. I have 13 seconds left. I keep on time. I appreciate you guys coming today. I'll be here afterwards. My team's here afterwards. Stacy's here. We have some cool cards to hand out with some digital technology on there, and be glad to handle or provide any information you need, and hopefully we can innovate together in some ways and continue to take the ideas, put them in classrooms, prove them, create sustainable ideas, and then share them with the whole private and public school enterprise. Thank you very much.